Fitz fam, how are you? That was really loud. That came out a bit hot. Guys, how are you? I am jacked up and excited to see you guys. I'm happy that I'm live back home from the Expert Professional Wood Care Products Studio. That's what we're calling this now. Good people over at Expert Professional Wood Care. You may have known them in the past as Standstill Experts. Caleb, Ashley, the team, the family, they've all been so good to us. And yeah. They're also one of our, well, I was going to say one of our favorite sponsors, but we don't play. It's like having kids. You don't tell them who's your favorite, right? Because then somebody always just gets left out. And we don't want that. We like all of our sponsors equally. That's a good answer. Anyway, guys, I'm jacked up. It's a tail end of a great week. It's Friday afternoon. I hope your guys' week has been fantastic. Hope you got big plans for the weekend. Here in the Midwest, we're getting a break from the heat, which is fantastic. Instead of, I tell you what, it was 105 with a heat index of like 120 last week or something bizarre like that. That's oven temperature. Okay. We prefer to keep our real temperatures out of oven temperature range, like smoker range. No, thank you. We're not trying to smoke beef outside right now. We're trying to live our lives. Thank you. But anyway, that's the weather talk for today. It's a good week, folks. I hope the week's great on your end. Obviously, we're on a different day, right? We made a post last week just kind of trying to explain that life is a bit crazy right now between travel for content and travel for personal, and got a vacation coming up. Anyway, we're doing these on Fridays for a little while. But if you're watching this, you already got the memo, though, I suppose. I'm preaching to the choir. Appreciate you guys showing up on a Friday. If you're listening on a podcast, not any of that made sense at all to you because you're not listening to this live. So I'm sorry. If you'd like to watch live, check us out at youtube.com/Joe Everest, and you'll find us. And we'll let you know when we're going live. But appreciate you tuning in. I'm told in podcast land, it is important for me to ask you for a review. So if you find this content helpful or educational or heck, even a little bit funny, why don't you leave us a review? We'd like it. I think, a lot of the big podcasters, and I see one in the chat, so I'm going to give them a shout out in a little bit, but the big podcasters, what they do sometimes is they read out 5-star reviews as a way of like saying thank you for the great review. So maybe we will make that a thing. We will pick each week, if we have them, random 5-star reviews, and I will just read them on the live, and I will say thank you live as a way of saying thank you for giving us a great review. How about that? I'm just creating more work for the team. So, go team, go. All right, guys. I want to say hello to you. Let's see who all is here. Roger says he's working till 2:30, so he'll be a bit late. Absolutely no problem, Roger. We are here. We'll be here for a little while. We'll say that at least an hour, minimum an hour. I'm here till we run out of content, to be honest with you. Because tonight we've got so here locally, we've got, well, not locally, it's an international group called Sertoma, which stands for Service to Mankind. The local, not branch, local group, I guess, is the Springfield Sertoma. We've actually got 3 Sertoma groups here in Springfield. We've got Springfield Sertoma, which I am the president of this year. We have Heart of the Ozarks, and then we have Queen City. So anyway, it is our board retreat this weekend. So it's the weekend where we close ourselves in and we huddle up and we figure out, how in the world we're going to try to bless more kids with funding or with experiences or whatnot. So that starts tonight. So we're not trying to have a 3-hour live here, but if you guys are up for it, we could probably make that happen anyway. So Roger, I say all that to say, come on in when you get off work. Speaking of one of the top podcasters in the industry, because I am not going to get involved in the I'm number one, no, I'm number one, no, I'm number one conversation when it comes to podcasts. But he was the first podcast of the fencing industry. His intro used to be the first and only podcast for the fencing industry. Then he convinced enough of us to get involved in podcasting, and now that's not true anymore. Dan Wheeler is with us. Dan, how are you? We're going to talk about what in the world TFIP 15 means in just a little bit, but it's a contest, and I'm excited about it. These guys are going head to head, and I love watching it. These guys are competitive. Dan, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. David Olson's with us. Hello, Joe. Madison Fence Company here from Wisconsin. Welcome. In the middle of moving shops, I hate moving. David, that's no kidding. So we bought this facility December of 20. Is this 22? This is 22. So probably December of 20. And now, granted, it's on this. It was an adjoining property, right? So really all we had to do is knock down the fence in the middle, and then we could just move back and forth. I thought that would be easier. I think it's worse because you end up, if you're moving across town, you end up, making big trips, right? You maybe get a moving truck, maybe you don't. I mean, if you're in the fencing trade, you've got access to trucks and trailers. The thing is, you're going to make an organized move. What we found out is when it's right next door, you just take over whatever you need. And so you end up kind of living in 2 houses for a while saying, hey, is the such and such tool over here? No, it's over in the other shop. Well, let's go get that. Anyway, it took us about 6 months to move, I think. So anyway, I agree. Moving is not great, whether it's moving houses or moving businesses. I'd argue that moving businesses is worse, and I don't like moving houses at all. So that's saying something. Moving businesses is awful. But once you're done, it's kind of nice. You get to be in a new place, and you get to spread out a little bit. So, David, hope that move's going well. AJ Rural says, good morning, mate. 5 a.m. AEST. I'm going to show my ignorance here. Is that Australian Eastern Standard Time? We looked that up real quick. I'm going to thumbs up. I nailed it, folks. I just made that up. So good. Well, I mean, okay. The Morning Mate kind of gave that AOA, but great podcast with the number one fence industry podcast recently. Thank you. Speaking of Dan Wheeler, right? Could relate with your comments on Facebook group page comments from experienced fencers. That's the thing we all see I don't know. We all see these groups, right? That have certain individuals that are just like dead set on, look at this little guy. What are they doing? I tell you the one that stuck out in my mind. It was, what were they driving? It looked like a family maybe, or who knows? It was a van, right? A van or a small SUV. And they had like a pre-made fence panel tied to the top of it. And the post was like talking negatively about them, right? Like, oh, look at this, chucking a truck or whatever, using that term in a derogatory nature. And my thought is, guys, we all started there, right? Like some of us more recently than others. So, I mean, my granddad started this company back in 1955, but he started out as a chuck in a truck, right? Like that's like, let's be honest. Like, I don't know anyone starts running a $5 million a year business with a 12,000 square foot warehouse and a fleet of nice shiny trucks and trailers. I don't know. I'm not a fan of absolutes. I won't say that never happens, but I got to think that the chances are pretty slim someone starts out there, right? I think it's more likely that everyone started out as an owner-operator, working in the field, wearing the tool bag, graduated into running it as a business, having an office and all that, and then eventually grew it through like smart business practices and all that. I'm not downgrading that, obviously, but the point I was making in the podcast was let's keep in mind that we all came from somewhere, right? Like it's a thing that's going on in these Facebook groups about guys that are just really ripping on new contractors, and I'm not here for it. I mean, like I said, I think I thank goodness every day that my granddad started out as a truck in a truck, because now it leads us to a business that is established and in a nice facility, and we do a fair amount of business every year. But like I said, I also remember that you got to remember where you came from, right? So anyway, AJ, so glad to have you with us this morning on your end, this afternoon here, but each their own. So it's Saturday there though. Hey, you've already started your weekend, and I'm jealous of that. Let us know how your weekend's going, AJ. Stephen Boy Billings, good evening, Joe. Good evening. See, what's morning for one person is the evening for another person, right? So, Stevie Boy, welcome from Ireland. I'm not great with flags. I apologize. I might have got that one wrong. So, if I did, apologies. But I'm so glad you're with us. Thank you so much. So, I'm trying to figure out this whole getting you a hat thing. I'm trying to figure it out, and it's not a money thing. So Steve had asked for a hat, and I said I'd love to send you a hat. I don't know how to send one to a different country across an ocean with import. We're exporting from the U.S. and importing it there. I don't know how that works. And Stevie graciously said, "Listen, I'll help pay for. I'll cover the cost. It's not a cost thing. I just don't know how to do it. So, but it is on my list. I'm gonna try to figure out how to get you a hat, no charge, because you've been with us. Maybe I don't know about from the beginning, but for a very significant amount of time, and I appreciate that. You're one of the faithful, loyal listeners and watchers. I want to say thank you. So just know I'm trying to figure out how to get you a hat. And as soon as that happens, I'm going to reach out. We're going to get an address from you, and that dude is heading its way to you. AJ says, got it with the Australian Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. Luck of the draw, really. Anyway. Guys, how's your week going? What were your wins? I tell you, I got a better question for you. What are you struggling with this week? Let's try to figure that out. And that's one of the things I really want to use this platform for, is helping contractors, not just newer. Now, a lot of the comments are from newer contractors. I am here for that conversation. Absolutely. But I'm also here for the established contractors, right? I think we as a community, as a group, get better when we help each other, right? Myself included. That there's something to be said. And so last week we were in Greensboro, North Carolina for the TCAM training event. Incredible event. If you guys are in North Carolina, if you're with manageable drive from Greensboro, I would encourage you to show up next year. Great panel, great group of speakers and trainers. I enjoyed being a student just as much as I enjoyed getting up and talking about social media marketing. While we were there, we were talking about why we do it, right? Like, why am I there? Why did I travel halfway across the country, take how long we're gone, 4 or 5 days out of my schedule, 4 work days out of my schedule to sit and help teach and all that. Why? What's the why, right? I think, which is an important question to ask yourself about any situation, because as you uncover your why, you uncover the drive you have for it. So anyway, that's a whole different conversation. But for me, it's because when I'm teaching, when I'm explaining, when I'm showing, I'm thinking about it a little bit more critically, right? Like, I really have to have a very good understanding of the subject matter so that I can explain it to you or to someone else effectively and clearly. And then your return questions to me teach me how to be more clear about it, right? So if you have a question about it, I haven't explained something clearly enough, maybe, helps me to understand how to more clearly explain that subject matter next time. So I think we as a community and we as a group of professionals, or not, right? Maybe you enjoy building on the weekends. Maybe you don't. Maybe you consider yourself part time, or maybe you're in the DIY crowd. Maybe YouTube sent you you should watch this, and you're a homeowner. And you like building fence at your own place. Regardless, I think we all get better by helping each other, right? I think that should be our motivation as a community. And I'm going to start using this word community because I had a really interesting series of conversations in Greensboro revolving around creating community. And what does that mean? What is your community? Who is in your community? What is the mission of the community? So a lot of people will try to build a community, a group of people with kind of a common thought or a theme, but they don't have a why, right? They don't have a reason for the community to keep building or to keep engaging with each other. So the community slowly kind of falls apart, right? Because there's just a lack of engagement because it's not interesting or it's not helpful. People have only a finite amount of time in any given day. So why would they spend time on this community or within this community helping someone else? So that's the conversation that got had. I want to focus on building a community. And I think in some regards, we already have, right? We already have a community around the fencing industry. And actually, we probably have several communities, right? If we want to talk about association affiliation, right? So the AFA has a community. The Fence Worker Association has a community. The NAFCA, North American Fence Contractors Association, has a community. And sometimes those communities overlap. There's folks like me that I'm just kind of here to get better and to help other people get better. So I'm interacting with all these groups, right? But then you have a few that choose not to engage with one or more of these communities for their own personal reasons. We're already fairly good at creating community. And I think one of the things that we're not great at is figuring out how to provide value to that community, right? And how to keep that community engaged in a real and valuable way. And that's something that I think I've talked about it here, that I help out with a committee or a subcommittee of the National AFA and talking about like marketing and social media. And one of the things we're trying to talk about there is this kind of conversation of why AFA, right? Like, let's figure out the why. Once you uncover the why, you can help other people understand why it would be beneficial to them if you understand why it's beneficial to you. Also figuring out how can we provide more value to the membership, because if we provide more value than the cost, then there's obviously a perceived value proposition there where you get more than what you're getting, more than you're giving. So it's incredibly, more valuable. Anyway, I'm a part of that group. And so we're thinking about that, but also I'm thinking about a more independent community, right? Because there are those that won't engage with whichever, an AFA, an AFW, or a FWA, a NAFCA group, just because it is that organization. They've got something in their past, or they've heard something about the past, and they don't want to interact with that community. So how can we have an independent community that says, irregardless of which association or all the associations that you choose to belong to or associate with, really, we're just here to promote fencing, right? And what does that look like? And what value does that bring you guys, right? We could call the YouTube viewership a community, and a lot of people do. They'll call their viewers and followers and they'll have names for the community. This one, I think we endearingly call the Fence Fam, right? I don't know. It's something that we've talked about a lot while we were in Greensboro, because while Greensboro wasn't specifically fencing, it was more of a power washing. So I was there really as a part of Caleb's, the expert professional wood care team. I'm just talking about their products and obviously speaking to the group as a whole about social media marketing, how to become your own brand manager, your own brand ambassador, that sort of thing. Anyway, it wasn't necessarily a fence group, but we were having similar conversations about community and building community and bringing value to your community so that your community grows and you can help more people by growing your community. A lot of good conversations, a lot of long conversations, because this is an incredible, incredibly long conversation, because I think it requires a lot of thought. Anyway, and I don't know. What do you do with the community? How do you show value? How does it grow? What is the incentive to be part of the community? Something that we're talking about and we're trying to figure out, because I think we could do something even bigger than providing value to you guys through these live Q&As or the recorded content that we put out. It's really about trying to scale content, right? So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about the community as it is, or the community. How do you guys fit into a given community in the fencing industry? I think we'll probably have some larger conversations about this in the future, about what this looks like, about what you guys would like from a community like that. What don't you like about other communities? Like what needs do the communities not serve for you guys? If you were to wave a magic wand and create a community, what would that community look like? What value would it provide? I think these are all conversations that we're going to have in hopefully the near future, but sometime in the future. Interesting conversations for sure. Ruben says, you just need to visit your local UPS store with your package and the international address, and they will take care of the rest. Interesting. Okay. I assume there was like forms to fill out, and okay. So we actually have a really good relationship. It's not a branded UPS store, right? So it's called Rapid Ship Republic. They accept FedEx, UPS, USPS, and all that. I never thought to ask them about this. How do I send a hat abroad? Interesting. Stevie, let's do this. If you're still watching, I'll send you a message to figure out how to get a message to you. Email me your address, joe@thefenceexpert.show. Braden, can you drop that in the show note or in the chat? So email me your address, and I'll get with our local shipping store and see about how to get you a hat. We will figure this out. All right, guys. How's the day going? Let me know how your day's going. So I started off that long rant, that little bit of a rabbit hole, by asking you guys, what wins did you have this week? What went really right? And what speed bumps did you hit? How can we help each other there? I guess I will go first. So rather than just expecting you guys to participate without a little bit of participation in return. All right. Wins for the week. Well, we got back, right? We got back from Greensboro. And while that doesn't sound like very much of a win, it was a bit of a win. So we were scheduled to fly back on Saturday, and we did start the journey on Saturday. We were scheduled to both leave and get home on Saturday. Left Greensboro, midday. Showed up in Atlanta. The air carrier, let's see, had they already rescheduled? They had already bumped it once before we left, right? Yeah, they kept delaying it, but it was always for like weird random increments of time. Like this delay is 23 minutes. Oh, new delay, 31 minutes, and it just little delays. We get there and they're still kind of delaying it. The plane's not there, which is probably a big part of this equation. But it's okay because we're messing around and we're just kind of seeing the airport. It's Atlanta, so there's plenty enough to do. Actually, I think we ate while we were there. There's going to be like a couple-hour layover. We had some time. Went and ate, and we kind of hung out for a little bit, and decided, well, let's go get closer to the gate. And it kept getting rescheduled and rescheduled. It got rescheduled several times while we were there. It got rescheduled prior to us leaving, and then while we were there anyway. Then it started raining. As far as rainstorms go, it got heavy for a few minutes, but it wasn't that impressive of a rainstorm, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? It wasn't a flood type rain. Then it delayed again during this storm, and then flight got canceled, which is aggravating, right? Because you just want to get home at that point. You're like, I've been in Atlanta for 4 hours, which is about 3.5 hours longer than I wanted to be here. Ideally, you would just step off one plane. Well, ideally, you wouldn't step off a plane, right? But if you had to connect, you would step off one plane and walk right to the next gate and get onto that plane and continue your flight home. We're there too long. Flight canceled. All right. So Well, and it was kind of confusing because we were getting text updates and email updates as it was getting rescheduled. Then we'd check the app, and sure enough, rescheduled again. And then Braden texted me. He said, "Hey, the app says it's canceled." That's weird. Haven't got a text. Haven't got an email. We were a few gates away. The gate that was supposed to be the Springfield gate was a bit crowded. It was a smaller gate. So I said, I'll walk over there and see. Walk over there and ask the lady. I said, "Hey, is this for sure canceled? Because the app says canceled, but we haven't got a text or an email." She said, "It is definitely canceled. You need to go over to that gate and figure out what your next move is." Well, that was nice because that particular gate, or the help desk, had about 100 people in line. Because Braden and I have some thoughts on this whole flight cancellation. They know they're going to cancel it, but I feel like they cancel flights. And actually, this is Braden's. I'm just parroting what he said, but they cancel these flights in waves, so they don't have like 500 people attack the help desk. Well, ours was like they'd already canceled 3, 4, 5 flights before ours, so there's already a good 100 people in this line. She said, "Well, if you go down to gate like 11, there's another help desk over there, and they probably have fewer people." So she already knew they'd canceled fewer flights over there than they had. They know more than they tell you, I feel like. But anyway, so we go scurrying over there. Well, then we see a Delta Lounge. And I know that because of one of the credit cards we carry, we have access to the Delta Lounge. And one of the benefits, supposed benefits of these Delta Lounges is they can reschedule stuff in there. They've got the terminal, they've got everything, and it's usually a shorter line because less people have access. So we go in there, and I say, I gave her the credentials, and it all checked out. And she was like, welcoming us into the lounge. I was like, "Well, we're actually not staying. I just need to reschedule a flight." "Oh, no, can't possibly reschedule flights." So I'm pretty sure I've seen people reschedule flights here before, like when I'm in the lounge or whatever. She's like, "Well, we typically do, but the management doesn't want us doing it right now because there's too many people trying to reschedule flights." Like, well, this is one of the few times where that service is needed. Like, that's pretty convenient to say, "Well, we usually offer it when you don't want it, but when you do want it, we're not going to offer it then." Couldn't possibly. There's too many people that need that service. You're going to need to go right out this door to that help desk and stand in that line. It's a shorter line technically, but there's still like 20 or 30 people in this line. We go and stand in this line because this lady's following her rules too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not talking to the people that make the rules. We're just talking to the people that follow the rules. So anyway, we go in this other line. We're standing in line. Well, then the lady from the Delta desk came out, or the Delta Lounge came out, and she said, "Sir," and she could have handled this differently, but she just taps me on the shoulder. She's trying to talk quietly, but we're all in pretty close proximity to each other in this line of 30 people. And she said, "You're actually rescheduled for the 9:00 flight tonight." I said, "I am." She said, "You are, and here's your boarding pass." She goes, "I looked it up after you left." To which I thought, why couldn't you have done that while we were there? And she should have, because she caused near pandemonium at this helpline because people figured out this lady's handing out boarding passes. She could probably hand me a boarding pass. And that lady immediately regretted her decision because there was no less than 10 people that like surrounded her, like hurling questions at her. Well, and I was trying to figure out. So Braden was with me. I was like, "All right, well, is he on the flight?" Because what? Oh, we already figured out that our reservations weren't linked correctly because something about the second flight was already off because they rescheduled or they reseated him. So we were sitting in first class. He and I were seated directly next to each other. So if we needed to chat during the flight, we could. Okay. Well, then he gets moved back to main cabin, which inconvenient, but okay. But I was like, that's kind of weird though, because I mean, think about it. If it was like me and my wife flying, then one of us is going back to main cabin while the other one's sitting in first class. I don't know how your guys' relationships work, but I know that I would be the one, regardless of which one of us got reseated, I would be the one going back there, right? So we already figured out they're not linked. But anyway, so fast forward. So we know they're not linked. We're talking to this lady, and I said, "Now, he is traveling with me as well. We booked the tickets at the same time. He's on that 9:00 flight, right?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know." And this is while she's getting bombarded with other people. And so then she's like, "Well, let's go back in the lounge and talk." All right. So go back there, and she's looking up. No, Braden is on the 10:45 the next morning flight. I'm like, well, that's obviously not going to work. Like, we need to travel together in this situation. Well, because Braden's car was parked here at the office. I drove both of us to the airport. It's going to be more convenient if we both show up at the same time. Can't possibly. That 9 o'clock flight is oversold. Like, well, it is now because you canceled I don't even know what flight that was supposed to be before. But anyway, so couldn't possibly. Well, Braden gets to have himself a bit of an adventure because, I was like, all right, so what are the accommodation arrangements then? Because you canceled this flight. Well, you got to go back out to the help desk. And I was like, well, kindly, that's what you told me last time. And then you came out and you had a solution. Do you have a solution? Nope, can't possibly. You got to go talk to the guy at the help desk. Okay. Go out, wait in the line for a little while. We get there. And really all he does is kind of reconfirm that Braden is on this 10:45 a.m. flight. We're like, yeah, we know that. We're trying to figure out, sleeping accommodation. Like, where's he going to stay? Well, so he calls somebody, probably like a manager or somebody, and asks like what the reason for cancel. Like, I forget how he said. He goes, "How are we coding this cancellation? How is it coded?" Like, well, so you're just figuring this out. Like, it sounded like they were making stuff up at this point. Like, oh, what are we going to do about it? And the reason came back as weather. It said, oh, it's a weather cancellation, so we're not responsible for it. So they're on their own. That's pretty rich because we would have been home. Like, if you guys had your stuff figured out and we left when we were supposed to leave, we would have been home before this weather even showed up, right? Well, he wasn't having it, obviously. Like, listen, he's a guy doing his job, and this guy was a champ because he was still in a fairly decent mood when we showed up, and he'd heard some stuff by the time we got there. No one's happy when their flight gets canceled, right? But he's doing his best. He's actually doing a good job at it because people are fairly, I don't know, I don't want to say happy, but they're not just like ready to set the airport on fire when they're leaving him. So he's doing his job. But anyway, my point being, if they hadn't rescheduled the flights, we would have been home before the storm showed up. So my thinking is like, wait a minute, what? So you can just reschedule flights all day and just hope it rains. And if it does rain, you've got no responsibility. You're like, well, listen, we don't control the weather. No kidding. But anyway, Braden got to spend the night at the airport is the result of this story. So, which part of this is probably my fault because the people that were behind us were also headed to Springfield. Like, what are the chances of this story also? So we're headed from Greensboro, North Carolina to Springfield, Missouri. They're headed from Raleigh, North Carolina, which is only an hour away. We actually drove to Raleigh while we were in Greensboro, headed to Springfield, Missouri. Astronomical chances, right? But anyway, so we're chatting with them. They're behind us. They sweet talked their way onto a waiting list for the 9 o'clock flight onto standby list. They're number 12 and 13. They're like, well, we're probably not going to get on this flight. We're probably going to go, we're going to have to fly to St. Louis. They had a whole intricate plan. Well, their plan fell apart though because they figured out they couldn't get a rental car in St. Louis anyway. But they got on the flight. They made it on the standby list, and they were behind us. So my reasonable deduction is if I had known that and I'd got Braden on the standby list, Braden would have come home with us. I digress. So then I thought, wait a minute. I've got access into this Delta Lounge. Atlanta's a 24-hour airport. Maybe the Delta Lounge is a 24-hour lounge because it was in Atlanta, but we did, where was it? Dallas, maybe? Dallas or Miami. We did like a massive layover. We're coming from Panama City, Panama, I think, back to Springfield. It was like a 12-hour layover or something. It was ridiculous. But I remember they had like sleeping lounges in this Delta Lounge, like sleeping areas in the Delta Lounge. Like, okay, maybe they have one of those here. We can get you in there, and that way you're not like sleeping on the benches sort of thing. Nope. Lounge closes like 10 o'clock or 10:30. So we still go in there, and I'm like, all right, you're just going to camp here for a little while until they kick you out, and then you're off on your adventure, I guess. But it was an okay adventure, though. It wasn't bad. And had some funny stories. Airports are busier than you'd think overnight, come to find out. And while during one of these layover, or I think it was during the rain, like Braden just like walked to a whole nother terminal. He's like, you wouldn't believe it. There's like some art installations on the way. There's like a whole walkway situation. He's showing me pictures. Like, that is nice, but you just up and walked to a whole different terminal. Like, okay. Braden likes adventures. So Braden did an adventure the whole night. And so I picked him up at like, I don't know, it was 11:30 the next day. And I don't know where I was going. Oh, listen, our accomplishment was showing up. When we got home, that was the accomplishment. We learned valuable lessons while we were there. One, always ask for the standby, no matter how long the line is. Yeah, and try to get hotels early. Like, that was another thing. So anyway, yeah, there's a whole story there too. So yeah, grateful to be back. What was your guys' win? Let me know what your guys' win was in the comments below, and then I can probably come up with a few. Let's check in here. Jeremy, how are you? Welcome. Glad to see you back. Thanks for the reminder that almost everyone started out small. Being part of this community is very encouraging. It's absolutely true. It's true. Everyone started somewhere, right? Like, I don't know anybody that just like woke up one day like, you know what? I think we're going to do about 5 million this year, and we're going to have a massive, really nice place and all these nice trucks. Everyone started somewhere. Unfortunately, some people forget that, and I don't understand that. You know, it's a whole decisive conversation. Like, where does the decisiveness come from? Like, that's probably a good question to ask. Or anyway, I think if we all work together. So who was it? Oh man, maybe it might have been Cannon I was talking to about this. Likened it. I think I was on a call with Cannon and Dan Dan Wheeler and Dan Blanc. Talking and likened it to pushing Boulder up a hill, right? We're having kind of a marketing conversation, and it was talking about, like, listen, the more people you get pushing this boulder up the hill, the quicker it goes up the hill, the easier it goes up the hill. And I think that applies here as well, right? So we could all try to fight each other, right? And bicker with each other and just generally not make progress on this boulder, or we can all try to put the boulder up the hill, right? We can all work together, figure out who needs help, where their weaknesses are. Do our strengths match their weaknesses? Can we help them out of a situation? Here's a conversation too. A lot of people think their situations are like totally unique. They're like, listen, I appreciate the advice, but fence in my town is different than fence in your town. And the example I give is, like, you could be walking down the aisle like Fence Tech or somewhere, some room with hundreds of fence contractors, be like, you know what? Everyone else in this room has it so easy because I got to dig through rock. And then you will have all 100 some odd people telling you how you have it easy because, oh yeah, you got rock. Well, guess what? I got clay. And you haven't built fence until you built fence through dry clay because it's like concrete. Another guy says, oh yeah, well, I've got sand. You guys have it easy because clay comes out when you're digging the hole, but sand doesn't want to come out. It keeps filling the hole. And this bickering goes on and on and on. Everyone thinks their situation is very unique, when in actuality, we're all having the same conversation about how horrible digging conditions are, and we need to figure out better ways to build fence, right? The answer to all those questions might be that you figure out how to drive posts, because then that kind of answers all those questions. Now, I haven't figured out how to drive posts in really rocky conditions because we got some rocks. The county just south of me is called Stone County. That's how many rocks they have. They just have a whole county of rocks over there. But I don't know where I was going. Oh, we're all trying to figure it out. But we think our situations are very unique, and we think our problems are very unique, and they can only ever apply to us. What we're figuring out is that 80% of our businesses are the same. And there's probably 20% that's different. It's the whole here's the thing. There's this 80-20 rule, right? And the original way I heard it was, and I guess I've heard several iterations. 80% of your revenue comes from a 20% demographic. You need to figure out what that 20% is and grow it. Also heard like 80% of your problems come from 20% of your demographic. You need to get rid of that demographic. 80-20 rule gets thrown around a lot. And I'll apply it to this in that I firmly believe if you take my business and any one of the businesses out, any other fence company out there, our businesses are probably 80% similar, right? We give proposals. Now, whether the proposals are given in person or online, not here for that debate. 80, we still get proposals. We still build fence. We still get paid for building the fence. We still employ people. We still on and on and on, right? Now, there's 20% that's different. And that's probably where I do bids in person. I only believe in doing bids in person. Congratulations. We don't do bids in person. Unless I say that. No definitive statements, right? But we typically do not do in-person estimates unless for whatever reason the property doesn't show up on the quote tool or whatever. Or we were having this conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago talking about moving from flatbed 1-ton pickup trucks to more of the Isuzu NPR. What was the other one? Hino, I think, was another brand of these flat deck cab over type trucks. There's 20% of the businesses that are going to be 20% of your business will be different than mine, roughly, but 80% is going to be the same. So if we can figure out what your problems are, there's a good chance I've seen a problem. Maybe not be that exact problem, but it may be a version of that. And I can give you my experience, share my experience with you, and hope that my experience, you can apply it to your problem. Again, maybe not exactly, but close enough to try to help you figure out the solution for your problem. And I think I just reiterated the whole purpose of this channel is trying to figure that out, right? Trying to help you guys by sharing my experiences with you on whichever platform you tend to be watching on, or you happen to be watching on right now. Speaking of platforms, guys, if you're finding this content helpful, be sure to give it a like. Also, if you're whichever channel, if you're watching on YouTube, please consider liking and subscribing. Facebook, like and follow. LinkedIn, I don't know. Like is all there's an applause. That one would probably be a good one. Actually, back up, pause, reverse. Facebook, we're actually not wanting the likes because likes are not plugged into the algorithm anymore. We're asking for one of the higher emotion. So when you click on like, it'll actually give you higher emotions like the heart, the hug, the laughing, the shocked, angry. Whichever emotion you're feeling right now about this stream, drop that one in there and we'll talk about it because it'll pop up right there. On my screen, it'll pop up right there and I'll know which emotion you're feeling right now about this stream. If you're watching in LinkedIn, give it an applause. I think you could follow the channel on LinkedIn. I'm not super clear on that. We're still trying to I'm still trying to figure out LinkedIn. Guys, if you could give some feedback, help the algorithms know that this thing is helpful and productive, that would mean a lot to me because it would help the channel grow and we could find more new people to try to help them. All right. If you guys want to send me feedback, questions, comments, concerns, joe@thefenceexpert.show. It's exactly how you get a hold of me. How you do not get a hold of me is sending an email to Ozark Fence Company because they get a lot of emails and we don't need to plug up their emails with emails trying to get to me. I'll give you guys a hint. Those emails don't show up to me. They filter them out and then, I say that. 9 times out of 10, they don't get to me. They'll get filtered out, or they'll forward them on to this email address. So you can actually save that step and just send it directly to me here rather than send it to the business. That would be hugely helpful. I would appreciate that. Ben says, sleeping in the airport builds character. Well, Braden has one more night of character then because he did that night. Joe says, howdy from Southeast Texas. Howdy, Joe. I don't know where I got that from. I think that was like the, I don't know, stereotypical cartoon. Howdy, mister. All right. David Olson says, driving is the way to go. Rock, though, won't work well. We learned that. We bought the driver. We bought longer Postmaster posts, which we're actually still sitting on. So that's fun. We've repurposed the driver though. I had several people reach out to me because I had made this comment before that we tried driving. We got the driver. We tried setting it up. It didn't work. We repurposed that driver into driving T-post because for whatever reason, T-posts do still work here. Postmaster posts do not work here. So, but we tried it. We tried it on either 2 or 3 of our rent houses or my rent houses that we had building fence on. Didn't. I wanted it to work. I wanted it to work really well, but did not work. So I don't know. Now, what to say on this subject? So there is a newer product out there for driving posts for ornamental aluminum and steel that has my interest, that I'm currently having conversations about. And that might be about all I can say about it. But so there is a solution to driving posts for steel and aluminum fence that hopefully I will have more information for you guys in the near future. So that's interesting. We might try to look at it because that solution, the post looks different than the Postmaster post. Part of me thinks the reason that the Postmaster post didn't drive well is when it hits rocks, it doesn't handle hitting rock very well. It just doesn't handle hitting rock. It doesn't have enough oomph to punch through rock. Whereas, like, I see guys. So I don't know this guy, but I guess I'm going to give him a shout out. So I watched a guy named Track Mater on TikTok, and this guy drives like 2.5 inch, like heavy. It's probably not scheduled 40. It might be scheduled 80 pipe, but he's driving it through rock, like just punching it through rock with this massive driver. Obviously it's possible, right? So that gets me to thinking, now his driver is significantly larger than the driver. We had a handheld driver. This guy has like one of those tracked drivers. It wasn't an Evo machine, but it looked similar to the Evo machines I've seen in the groups. But that led me to believe maybe the shape of the post affects how well it drives, right? That the Postmaster post it wasn't designed to be driven. I know a lot of guys drive them with a lot of success in less rocky scenario. They're not meant to drive through rock because they start twisting and bending and just doing all sorts of not great stuff. But so this other solution for ornamental steel and aluminum is more substantial. So my thought is there's a really good chance that it might drive better than the Postmaster post. So solution possibly forthcoming. Actually, let me do this. Let me give a shout out to Mark Olson's SWI channel. Where did I see him show it? I saw him show it on his Facebook page. So if you guys look up the SWI Fences Facebook page, check out a video that's showing Mark and ornamental fencing this week. I watched him talk about it this week. So he and I and some others are having conversations about this product. So anyway, possible solution forthcoming. I know there was absolutely no information that was usable for you in that whole statement, but you also can't talk about everything all the time. All right. Joe says, I got drought hardened clay, and that's why material has been bought, and the fence still isn't going up until October, November. Joe, I hear you. I'm not debating that hard clay is like concrete. My point was only that, guys that dig through rock think everyone else has it easy, but then guys like yourself that are dealing with drought hardened clay are like, hey, listen, at least you can break a rock, right? Like, at least if you hit that thing hard enough, you can take a jackhammer to it and chisel out enough for a hole. Good luck with drought hardened clay, right? Because that stuff, it's a massive, it's like a concrete. Basically, you just got a core drill through it. Yeah, I hear you, Joe. I do. AJ says, I've been working for myself for just over a year. Congratulations. And I've had a large number of learnings during the year. I then discovered YouTube channels and podcasts where I realized I wasn't alone with those experiences. Wish I found them early. I'm just happy that I'm one of them. Like, I'm so glad that you found the channel. AJ, help us help others, and by maybe sharing those experiences if you're comfortable with that. Not necessarily just on this video, but as you feel comfortable talking about maybe the challenges you faced or challenges that you're currently facing. We could help you try to get through those, but then also as you're learning, there are others that are having similar experiences. So if you're having current challenges, there's a good chance someone is having that same challenge currently or might be having it in the near future. So letting us help you through those challenges could actually, help yourself, but help other contractors that might be in that same boat that you're in now. Regardless, congratulations on your new business. Let us know if and how, and we can help. Divine Fence, how are you? I'm not even losing my voice, but that came out a little squeaky. How are you? Hello, Joe and Fence fan from Massachusetts. Love driving fence when we can, mostly chain link fence. I am very interested in driving aluminum ornamental fence. I think it could be big. I do. And you guys will obviously be some of the first people to learn about it. Yeah, I don't want to step over any lines and talk about it much more than that, but it's coming, and it could probably be driven with, if you're driving chain link posts right now, it could likely be driven with some of the same equipment. So it's an interesting concept for sure. I think it'll do well. I'm jealous of you guys that can drive posts, because you say you love driving posts when you can. We can't at all. So unless maybe if you brought dirt in, if we were to import some dirt and drop it somewhere, we could drive posts through that dirt maybe, but none of the dirt that's here now. I'm jealous. I watch these Facebook videos and YouTube videos and TikToks. The guys just drive and post. Typically it's kind of down. Well, you're in the east, though. You're Massachusetts. I was gonna say kind of in the southeast has kind of better driving soil. That doesn't even make sense. Soil that's easier to drive through. Well, I say that up in Nebraska, though, they've got some pretty good drive. I'm just jealous if you can drive posts, is my point. So we got to dig holes here. I'd much rather. I was watching a video, and it was a YouTube video, and it was years ago, but it fascinated me. So it was some guys building fence at an airport, and they had. I don't want to speak negatively. I don't want you to think I'm speaking negatively about this thing by calling it a contraption. I just don't know what to call it. It looked like a man lift. So it's an elevated platform that had guys on it. So it was, let me think this through. They had a machine that was driving posts hooked to this platform. So as it's driving forward, it drives a post, drives forward again, drives another post, drives forward again, drives another post. But it's got guys on it. So then the next step is it also has what looks like a version of the wire hog. So it's standing up wire, running it out. How is this thing working? It's on, no, two different machines. One driving, I don't know. No. Okay, whatever. It's a locomotion of building fence, driving the post, and then you got guys that are putting on rail, and then you got guys that it's pulling wire out, and then the guys on the platform are like doing your top wire. I think it was an 8-foot fence. It was at an airport. Then you had guys on the ground that were tying off on the other side. That were tying off all the line posts. It was basically like within frame, like you went from no fence, chugga, fence built. It was incredible. And that's when I was like, we got to figure out this fence driving thing. Like that, this whole set and post is for the birds if we can get away from it. But then that started my, heartbreaking, disappointing journey into we can't drive Postmaster Post. Divine, I'm jealous of you guys if you guys can drive them. Catherine Smith says, listening in. Welcome, Catherine. Appreciate you listening in. Appreciate hearing about your unique challenges. Retired nurse. Welcome, Catherine. Appreciate you turning. My mom is or was an RN prior to me coming about. So thanks to me, she retired early after I showed up. But yeah. So, but I'm sure once an RN, always an RN. Maybe that's not technically like by licensing standards, I'm sure, but she still gives me RN type advice to this day about my children. So CNS Vinyl says, howdy guys. Howdy CNS Vinyl. Welcome. Glad you guys are here. FR says, in the service in the California desert, I drove those green steel signposts straight into boulders. See, it's possible. It can happen. So this tells me that the variables could be the post, right? So Postmaster posts, while they're designed to hold up fence, weren't initially designed to be driven. Like I said, I understand people drive them. I understand they can be driven. I'm not saying they can't. They just probably weren't designed for it. But T-post, so the same driver that wouldn't drive Postmaster post is now repurposed into driving T-post. It can happen. T-posts are up, and so I think that's probably what you're talking about, or something similar. Green steel signposts. These are green T-post. So the type of post likely makes the difference. That's why I'm hopeful that this post that you can drive for ornamental aluminum and steel, that's why I'm hoping it has merit, because it could really change how we're doing stuff like that. AJ Earl says, sorry to hijack your show. No hijacking here. Listen, I go down so many random rabbit holes. Like, there is no hijacking. You're just leading me to a new rabbit hole is all. I'll definitely reach out. Please do. Biggest learning so far is knowing my worth, charging accordingly, and you don't need to win every job. AJ, you have now figured out what it has taken a lot of people to figure out, and they may not have figured it out yet. Knowing your worth. Here's this is a big conversation too, right? But it's all these questions in the Facebook groups and in some of the comments on these videos. How much I am in this market, whatever market, such and such market. How much should I charge for 6-foot privacy fence? I have no idea. I'm not running your business. I don't buy your materials. I don't pay your team members. I don't pay any of your bills. I have no idea what you should charge. However, there is someone that knows exactly what you should charge, and it's you. You know all the bills you're paying. So figure out what your cost of material is. How much is it going to cost to build that fence? Which is known as cost of goods sold, right? What are your cost of goods sold on that project? Which includes any and all material, any and all ancillary accessory, or not accessories, but what other supplies you're going to use? Not just your materials, right? So if you know that you replace your team's work gloves every 10, 20, 30 projects, well, there's a cost associated with that you can attribute to these jobs, okay? I'm not saying we track the cost of work gloves. That would be wild, but you could, okay? What materials? Related expenses meaning things that you could attribute to that project. Labor to build it, which includes the burden cost to the company. Employment taxes, work comp, whatever. Liability insurance isn't really a cost of goods sold. What is it going to cost? So not just your labor, but the cost of the company of having that labor, work comp and payroll tax, etc. Benefits, 401k and health, vision, dental, and all that. What is your cost to build it? Times 2. I'm a big fan of times 2. Times 2 can make up for I forgot X, or I only charge for my materials. I forgot to charge for the related expenses. Times 2 means you don't totally go belly up on this, right? Now, when I am guilty of charging less than times 2. Now, there's also, I understand, okay. There's also a conversation here that you should divide rather than multiply. We're keeping it simple, right? Double the number, times 2, or add it by itself, however you want to say it. This can make up for a lot of stuff like had to rent a piece of equipment that I didn't anticipate, or the job took longer than I thought it would. I've been guilty of charging less than that in the past. So in my granddad and dad's area, 33% gross was pretty common, which is multiplying by 1.5 get you 33% gross. Multiplying by 2 gets you 50% gross. This is all part of the conversation, AJ, that you're already figuring out, charging what you're worth, right? So charging the value of your business. Now, you also continue this by saying you don't need to win every job. That is a breakthrough as well, because sometimes I hear, you hear guys talk about, well, I only lose 20% of the jobs. I only lose 30%, which leads me to believe that they are wildly, A, they don't know their numbers possibly, or B, they are wildly underpriced for the value they're giving. For us, it usually is between 30 and 35% conversion ratio. Conversion rate is kind of where we're at. If I send out 10 proposals, likely we'll get 3 to 3.5. I understand 3.5 proposals doesn't make sense, but 3 to 3.5 proposals back will get approved. So then we know, just by simple math, if we need to book 7 jobs, we need to send out 20 proposals, right? If I want to do 70 jobs, we need to send out 200 proposals, figure out how to get so many people through the funnel to get to 70 proposals. And then we just kind of keep climbing the chain, figure it out. You don't want to win every job. My thinking is if you're winning more than, say, 40% of what you bid, the market is sending you a pretty clear message that you are underpriced for the value that you're providing. They think that it is such a smoking deal that they've gone past other contractors, right? So 30 to 35% is kind of where we like to set, which it sounds like something you're already on to, AJ, is that you don't need to win every job. This is a similar conversation to these guys that are booked out for the rest of the year. It's July. Well, or call a dog. It's going to be August on Monday. We're about done with today as a business day. So the next business day would be August. We're in August. Let's just say that. Booking out to the end of the year, first part of next year, wild. Again, so this probably comes back to conversion rates. Conversion rate has to be through the roof, right? Which tells me, again, underpriced for the value you're delivering. Now, what you charge is between you and yourself. I'm not here to tell you what you should charge. I'm simply saying that you probably ought to reevaluate what you are charging. 50% gross is where we like to set, which is simply your total cost times 2 gets you to a pretty close place. Ruben says, doing my first DIY cedar backyard fence. Best of luck. Should I do my oil stain on the pickets before installation or after? Absolutely before. If you can do it before, do it. So it's going to be easier for you to get all 6 sides of that board. Joe, my board only has 2 sides. It doesn't. It's got 6 sides. It could, depending on if it's dog-eared, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides. That thing, 8 faces is what I could have. So the thing is, once you install it, you're obviously going to have, depending on how you install it, there's going to be some overlap, rails, pickets. It's going to be hard to stain the part that overlaps that picket, right? Or overlaps that rail, or where the rail overlaps the post. Again, depending on how you install it, which style, there's going to be some overlap. There's going to be somewhere that you can't get stained to. You can't go and touch it physically. Pre-staining solves for this. Now, it takes a little bit more forethought. It takes a little bit more maybe setup, because you need to have something. Well, it depends how you're pre-staining. I prefer full immersion, so to dunk it, right? We've got basically like a big, long dunk tank. And so now we can physically fully immerse each 2x4 picket, etc., into the stain, pull it out to make sure it's got all the stain you could possibly hold on every single surface. So we know it's all coated. Yeah, I like that you said, should I do my oil-based stain? I think you've been watching and taking notes, Ruben, because that is absolutely correct. Oil-based stain, oil naturally resists and fights water. It doesn't mix with water. So an oil-based stain will naturally fight water longer. So I like that you're already onto that track. My vote is pre-stain. We've devoted an entire shop to pre-staining cedar materials, which that's probably important caveat there. Nope, never mind. You said cedar backyard fence. You already had it covered. I was going to say, if it's treated pine, you can't pre-stain it. Well, I guess technically you could pre-stain it if you stack the lumber with stickers that have airflow and you left it stacked for a number of weeks, probably, maybe months, depending on your area. But you're doing cedar, disregard. Divine says, have ran guardrail crews, and when you can pound your post in without obstacles, we would get on average 1,000 foot to 1,500 foot a day with a 4-man team. I wish we could pound all posts. Yeah. You highway guys, I am really impressed. Well, I assume, I guess I'm making an assumption when we say guardrail. I'm assuming it's highway guardrail. You want to talk about people with a process. Like we're driving, there's a bunch of highway, there's always ever a bunch of highway work. But watching these rail crews, these guardrail crews go through, incredibly efficient. And that's probably another point to pounding, right? Is that, I don't know. I guess maybe I possibly have seen them set these posts before, but by and large, they all have massive pounding units that just drive all these guardrail posts, essentially I-beams, right? So again, leads me to believe that it is possible. Maybe there's a few exceptions, but by and large, it's doable. So, Devon, I'm incredibly jealous of you guys driving guardrail. Like I said, guardrail is, as a fence guy, I love watching guardrail go up. Yes, T-post. We had a flatbed with a fold-out platform, a jackhammer-like driver, and a big air compressor towed behind. Yeah, so pneumatic driver is air compressor. So so pneumatic. So a lot of them we see now. So I'm thinking it sounds like Skydrill. It sounds like a Skydrill setup is kind of where my mind goes on that. Jackhammer like driver, so Skydrills really do look kind of like a jackhammer. I mean, Skydrill is a brand; it could be another brand similar. A lot of guys that use the Skydrills that like them use hydraulic, it's a compressor that kind of looks like the ones I've seen look kind of like the air compressors. I'm interested in this thought, so I saw, where did I see it? Probably on YouTube. A Dingo 1000, so one of the big ones that can reach pretty high. It had some sort of extension built onto it, like a single arm, platform arm over that platform that held up a hydraulic driver, and the hoses were fed back into the quick connects on the Dingo 1000. So they could drive it with the onboard hydraulics that would normally, rotate the auger or whatever. So this arm was built in such a way that they could pick it up, set it on they'd have one man holding the post, another operator would set that driver on the post, hooked up to hydraulics, and it would just tap that thing on down. The Skydrill type units are really heavy, but if you could figure out a way like this video, the guy I watched do this, or the video I watched do this, the Dingo 1000 has obviously the lifting capability. It had that arm that would go out and had like chain holding it or something like that. That's, I think, the winning combo here. And that's really kind of where my mind, when we're talking about driving, now we don't have a Toro Dingo 1000. We've got the Bobcat MT100. I'm not going to say potato because I understand that the specifications between the two pieces of equipment are different, but 80-20, pretty similar, right? So I'm thinking we could do that with the Bobcat MT100 is fashion a mounting plate to an arm that would hold one of those hydraulic units, get the quick connects or fashion the quick connects that would hook into the Bobcat onboard hydraulics, and then possibly use a hydraulic driver with that Bobcat. I don't know. Stay tuned as we try to MacGyver that thing together. I think it'd work. I really do. But I'm guilty of having ideas that I think will work that do not. As soon as I share that with someone with a little bit more experience, they go, well, that's a neat idea, but it won't work. And here's why. Yeah. Dreamer's dream. That's the thing. Joe says, I have a question. If using wood posts, would you float them in the concrete like you would chain link posts? What a question. So I have learned to say this depends on your soil conditions, because it depends. So depends on the soil, right? So if you have well-draining soil, I would recommend not floating it, right? So that any moisture, so that concrete doesn't act like a cup holding that water. Now, I said this on a video, and I have read the comments in that video. Now, the video is probably a couple years old now, and it still gets comments occasionally. That means the post will wick moisture out of the ground. Possible, but if the soil's well drained, then there's nothing really to wick. Don't you know that concrete is porous and water will penetrate through the concrete? I get it to a point, but I don't think it would, you know what I mean? If it's okay, depends on soil conditions, but I probably wouldn't float it. And I can be wrong. I can admit if I'm wrong, and I would love to see evidence that proves me wrong. I don't know that I would, because like I say, you float it, then you create a cup out of that concrete that when the wood gets set, it's wet. Whether it feels dry or not, it is wet. So that moisture has to go somewhere, right? So, and as it rains, the wood is going to wick the water, the moisture either on the wood or in the air. It's got to go somewhere. So my thinking is giving it somewhere else for that moisture to go, not a bad thing. But Joe, that's going to promote rot. No, it's not. Not if your posts are set 2 foot deep, because you You set the post 2 foot or more, 30 inches is ASTM, 30 inches plus is ASTM, 36 inches if you're driving. Okay. Well, we're talking about concrete. So anaerobic zone is typically the first 10 to 12 inches of the soil. And the anaerobic zone is where rot occurs. Now, rot is actually the organisms in the soil in this anaerobic or in this aerobic zone with the oxygenated zone that will consume the wood, whether it's for fiber or whether it's trying to get to that water, that present rot. That's what's commonly known as rot. It's not 2 foot, 36 inches deep. So we're not promoting rot by not floating the post. Now, if in your experience you prefer to float the post, you should float the post. I'm not directing this at Joe. I'm saying for those of you that are furiously typing that I am wrong about this, I'm giving my opinion. And I know you guys aren't, but I'm giving my opinion. And I understand some people would prefer to float the post. Knock your socks off. I think you should. If you believe in it, you should do it that way. But if you're looking for my input, I would suggest not doing that. It's based on my experience in my region with our soil conditions. I don't know how many asterisks I need to put behind my opinions, but maybe we need to play that tone like the opinions. What does it say? Like the opinions expressed during this broadcast are solely of the person saying them. They do not reflect the company or people that this person is associated with. Anyway, isn't that the whole channel, though, is like me just giving my opinions? I think that's what all these channels are. All right. CNS Violence says, we are 1,100 miles away from home this week. Golly, that is a lot. That is all the miles. In the great state of Texas, where it all started. Northeast of Austin, I like that part of Texas. We went to Austin. Was it? Nope, it was not Austin. It was. We're down there for FinStech. Not Santa Fe. I don't know. But I've also been to Austin. So in my younger life, we'd go to Austin city limits. Beautiful part of Texas. Northeast of Austin in the hill country. Lots and lots of field fence out here. Love it. Love it. Love it. FR says it was a flatbed dually truck that was driven down the road and 2 men on the flatbed driving signposts for miles down the road. Sounds like a pretty slick process. I would almost bet, well, I don't know. I don't want to say I'd almost bet it was a sky drill, but it probably was. All right, guys. My How Time Flies, we're an hour and 15 minutes into this. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to hang out and chat. But if there's no questions or no more comments, concerns, etc., we might just tie this thing off early. So I can get down the road, start figuring out how we can bless a few more kids with experiences or whatever it is. I say that. Maybe I explain that. So Sertoma helps area children by, namely Boys and Girls Club. We help raise money for Boys and Girls Club. But also, so next Thursday, we're having a gifting lunch where we are giving out funds to area organizations that applied for grants. And it could be anyone from Diaper Bank of the Ozarks, Discovery Center, a really neat organization called I Pour Life. It could be, this is the problem with starting to name things is you're going to forget a few. But we help fund area organizations that have an emphasis or a mission to help kids because it is the thought that kids are the future. I think that makes sense. That if we want to create a better community, we need to start with the kids that will tomorrow be building that community. Now, we also help out other area organizations. I say we, Ozark Fence also helps out other area organizations. Sertoma focuses on helping out kids organizations, which, incredibly important. So Ozark Fence feels like this is important enough of a mission that we give $25,000 annually to this specific gifting program. I think it's incredibly important, but that's what this weekend is about is we're going to head down. Like I said, this year I'm president of the organization. So it's like a 3-year cycle. Last year I got voted in as vice president. This year I'm president. Next year I'm chairman. Then I rotate out of the executive board. But we're going to figure it out. This year I'm at the helm. So we're going to try not to, run it off a cliff sort of thing. Ruben asked a great question. Joe, when is your next live chat? It will be next Friday. Same time, same location, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. 2 ? So next week, though, we're going to have Bo Butler and his guys here doing some training. So each quarter, we do a contest where fence contractors can apply to be brought in to do some training, a full day with me and the team, meeting everyone around, asking questions, us generally trying to just inject all of our experience and knowledge into these people so we can send them back out into the community to try to make it a better place in their local community. Bo Butler is this quarter's winner, so he will be in town next Friday for a full day of training. So live Q&A is next Friday with Bo and probably one or two of his guys. We'll chat about the day and about their company and about what takeaways they had and that sort of thing. So next live, so for the next 3 weeks, they will be on Fridays. The week after that, we leave on vacation on Saturday. So I'm going to do one of these Friday, 2 weeks Friday from here. Week after that, I'll be coming live from Destin, Florida from vacation. So for the next 3 weeks, they will be on Fridays, 2 p.m. Central. CNS says, ever use a temporary employment agency to find good helpers? We've used them, but we haven't found good helpers from them. So, I'm trying to think. I mean, we had some decent short-term help, but for whatever reason, didn't pan out. They weren't good long-term fit. I think so. This whole thing is, we're trying to build culture through bringing on people who have the same mindset around, being a part of a team rather than being an individual, that sort of thing. I really feel like the employment agencies are good at finding folks, but I feel like the folks that they find are more, I don't know that they're a part of a team. I think the employment agencies will send, if a factory says, hey, I need 30 people today, they will send 30 people regardless of who they are, right? The company doesn't care about, who gets sent or culture or anything like that. So I think they're good at finding those types of individuals who are an individual, who are probably a performer on their own, but when put in a team setting, they just didn't jive with the team. Could be a local experience, though. That could just be the ones that we've tried in our region. I'm not sure. They were good, though, at filling positions in that we could pick up a phone today and say, I need 3 people tomorrow with whatever skill set. And by golly, 3 people would show up that next day. Now, we would always ask for 3, knowing that we'd probably need to send 1 away. Because it's kind of the ratio. You'd get a few bad eggs in there. But, I don't know. We haven't had success. We've had random hits, good hits, but we haven't had great success long term. The team members we have in place, as I'm saying that, I'm trying to think and make sure, trying to think about where everyone's come from. So most everyone we've hired directly. We haven't used a temp agency to find our current team. So I know that doesn't help. It's certainly the nice thing that the temp agency provides is they do a lot of the early work. They'll go find the folks, they'll vet them, they'll do the interviews, they'll figure out what their skill set is, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And so from a performance standpoint, it's typically a good fit. They know exactly who these people are and what they're good at, what they're not good at. But from a culture standpoint, it's kind of hit or miss, just because everyone's culture is a little bit different. Everyone's company culture is a little bit different. And so it's not really something that the agencies are good at figuring out. So I don't know. My experience, that's the caveat there, right? All right, guys, fixing to dip out of here. I appreciate you guys joining. If you guys continue to have questions, drop them in the chat below, though, because I do watch the comment section. I do try to keep up with it. I'll admit it may not be the same day. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not. But I always see the comments, and I try to respond back as often as I can. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, you can check me out at youtube.com/Joe Everest or facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest, because apparently there are several of us on Facebook. As always, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. I'll see you next week.